I just want to encourage you that if you never have the big stage wow type moment, never underestimate the role that you play in connecting people to God, because that's just the passion story is just a small snapshot of the opportunities that you're going to bring for other people. Welcome, everybody, to the Spiritual DNA Sessions. Pastor Daron Earlewine here, and I'm excited to be with Eli Steiner today to take a look at his spiritual DNA results and just kind of have a dialogue with him and help him get to greater clarity on who God's created him to be. I know in spiritual DNA, we say it time and time again, when you know your worth, you will change your world. And I know that you go through spiritual DNA and you learn a lot about yourself, but sometimes it's tough to fit all the pieces together and have it make sense. So that's why we're doing these Zoom calls, these spiritual DNA sessions to help folks get clarity. And I know that my hope is that this helps you out, Eli, and as you grow in your knowledge, I hope it inspires and helps a lot of other people, maybe people that are similar to how God's made you. So welcome to the Spiritual DNA Sessions, Eli.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Right on. Well, Eli, tell us a little bit about yourself. I met you at Indiana Wesleyan. I taught spiritual DNA to your guys' course. But tell me, or I guess tell everybody else, what was the class that we took spiritual DNA with you?
Yeah, so that class was ministerial placement. It's kind of Charlie has it distinguished as like almost like an ending to our career there, but not just seniors take it. But I am a senior. I just now am graduating from undergrad.
So, all right. So senior at Indiana Wesleyan University.
Yep.
That's my alma mater. So I know how you must feel right now. Did you say today, did you turn in your last college assignment today?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
So how does that feel, man?
It feels so good to have an undergrad. I'll be going back for my master's degree since I'm in the current department. And I have another year of tennis with the tennis team. So
you're not totally done.
No, but it feels good to have like a degree under your belt after 3 years of working really hard.
For sure, for sure. Eli, we're going to get through and go through some of your spiritual DNA results, but I'd love to just get to know you a little bit better and let our listeners and our viewers kind of get to know you. So you're a senior at Indiana Wesleyan. What took you there? Kind of give us a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah, so growing up, I have always been in the church, and I had this thought that I never really wanted to be in ministry. My dad's a campus life director for the high school. So I've always been around ministry, and I never saw myself being in it until about like junior year in high school. I felt a leading into pastoral ministry or ministry for like a job, not just as a Christian, but to be in that role, maybe even as a youth pastor. So I began to look into schools, and God had given me the ability to play tennis really well too. It's something I've been playing since I was 6 years old, constantly. And Indiana Wesleyan was one of the places that accepted both me as a person pursuing it. God has given me a calling and the ability to play the sport I love.
Yeah.
And that has helped me pay for school. So in a way, I think God's given me the ability to play tennis for the reason to come out of school with little to no debt into a world of ministry where that will have to be a stressor behind.
That's huge.
What God has called me to do. So yeah, that's how I got to Indiana Wesleyan. I've always gone to camps at Indiana Wesleyan. Like my church is the missionary denomination, and we have our camp at Indiana Wesleyan during like 7th and 8th grade.
Okay. So you're familiar with the campus.
Yeah.
So Eli, tell me, go back to what you're saying. You kind of early on in life kind of resisted a call or didn't really want to go into ministry. Unpack that for me real quick.
Yeah, I just didn't see myself doing it. I was good at math. I really wanted to be an engineer. That's just how my mind worked. I loved figuring out numbers and putting things together. So I never saw myself in the same thing my dad was doing.
Yeah.
and a lot of comments I got was like, you're kind of like your dad, so I didn't want to like necessarily follow this exactly in that footsteps.
Just kind of a desire to have your own path, kind of lay your own tracks or whatever. It's interesting talking about math and some of the things that you're able to do. As I'm just glancing over at your spiritual DNA results. I mean, that's right down the pike of how God's created you, which would be interesting to see is as we talk through that, just how that plays out in the context of ministry. So that changed your junior year, and then obviously you've pursued that and began to pursue that kind of calling by going to Indiana Wesleyan.
Yes. Yep.
What's your major right now?
Youth ministry.
Okay.
And then I'll be studying practical theology and master's.
So you're going to go for your master's as well?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to jump into your results here, and we'll start with your fivefold ministry function or calling, your vocation, really, from Ephesians chapter 4. And that is really where I start with everybody, because it allows them to get their mind around. I really see it as the filter for which you understand who God's created you to be and how the rest of the results really do filter through and are used and become applicable. I guess one of the questions I would have for you in this is, what was your experience like going through spiritual DNA? What did you come through with some aha moments, some awakening moments? Was it more frustrating, more confusing? Where are you at right now before we go through the results?
Yeah. So some of the tests I've done before, but I wanted to see if I've grown or changed through my 3 years, because we do the strengths test at the beginning of the Indiana Wesleyan your career here. And I did change a little bit, but not a lot. Like achiever is still my top strength there. And I really enjoyed the fivefold. At first I did it, and I remember you talking about how don't go into it with how you want to be, but also go into it with just truly what you are. So the first time I did it, I kind of did it in a way that like, oh, I want to be this woo guy, but I'm not. So I went through it again, and the results you have are what I think what I at my best ability gave into that, which was awesome to see. I had always thought teacher was my top one, but I didn't.
Yeah.
On the last one, I had like evangelist come up top, and now the real one, evangelist, is down at the bottom. So, it's been a cool experience. I've always struggled in a way with my identity. I wish my brother is really like woo. And for me, sometimes hearing that in my church is like, oh, he's really good at this. I wish I was good at that, but it didn't work out that way. So it was really good to see how uniquely created I am. And that.
So let's unpack that term. Some people might not know it that are watching. So woo stands for winning others over. It's a strength and one of the strength finders. And so a lot of times in a ministry, maybe in a sales, a presentation kind of driven career, anybody that has woo, they're probably going to be pretty loud, pretty outgoing. You know what I mean? They're going to draw people in. They're going to get a lot of attention because that's what they do. They win people over to their cause, to their personality, to whatever it is. And so it sounds like what you're saying is that with your brother being that way, you felt maybe an unneeded pressure that like, if I'm really going to do the ministry thing or excel, I got to be like him. Is that kind of what you felt?
Yeah, a little bit. I can remember this past summer I did a church internship, and he was a senior in the youth group and I was the intern. And I kept remembering, like I was learning how to be a host. And I come off stage and I was like, so how do you do this better? And I remember one of the youth pastors saying like, well, you know who's really good at that? Your brother. Because he'll host for our main service. It's just his personality.
Yeah.
That was a big struggle for a while.
I think we talked about it maybe when I was teaching the class to you guys, Eli, is that in all of the spiritual DNA results, we have to pay attention of whether we are dealing with envy, arrogance, or ignorance, right? So we can have in all of the results, we may have a presupposition of what we feel like is good or the best or the way I should be or whatever it is. And that's where we get into like a gift envy. You know, we see somebody and we go, oh man, people like that, man, it'd be so awesome if I could be like that. Or we get into a gift arrogance, right? Where we look at our DNA and we're like, I wish everybody could be as awesome as me, right? Which doesn't help. And sometimes it's just ignorance. It's just you're not. It's not that you're stupid. You just don't have the knowledge yet. You haven't served long enough. You haven't lived long enough, or you just never have really dug into this kind of quest. And so I'm glad you brought that up, because I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to hear that and be able to say, listen, I've been right there, or I've sensed that myself. And that's why I love spiritual DNA, to be able to bring you to a place to say, you know what, like, I'm not like him or her, but who God has created me to be is pretty amazing. And he's going to open up opportunities for me to step into a perfect fit for me to do what I need to do. And so that's great, man. It's cool that you begin to see that.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, let's jump into your results and go through it. We'll start with your fivefold. And so your top two, you're a teacher pastor, or sometimes in spiritual DNA, we work with the 5 voices assessment that kind of changes the term there. And so I love the word guardian in the idea of teacher. So a teacher guardian, we'll refer to it as that. A teacher guardian is someone who obviously can teach, can take complex things and make them simple, make them easy to understand. Teachers, guardians are usually great at process and of structure. They're great follow-through people. They're usually very detail-oriented people. Looking down at your Myers-Briggs, your Young's typology, that is exactly what I see as far as your personality. And I guess the stones that sometimes people throw at teacher guardians, Eli, and I want you to maybe unpack this, is that they're always asking difficult questions in situations. They're always kind of maybe poking holes in a process because they're thinking about it. And they're trying to make sure. Teacher guardians have a great ability to make sure what is already working works better or continues to work great. And that means that sometimes they have to have a very critical eye to be able to see things. Has that been an experience for you through high school and through college? Kind of unpack that for me.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. Even like on simple things like going on trips with my fiance, like she's the person that will like want to just do it, and then I'm the person that will like figure every step out and like punch holes in it to make sure it'll work and that we won't be in trouble in any way. But also in ministry, I've had the opportunity to work at New Life Community Church, or volunteer at New Life Community Church for the 3 years at school. And we have like a youth group team led by college students, because they don't have a youth pastor. So we're all part of like one youth pastor, basically. And a lot of times my voice comes up just to figure things out. I end up sometimes maybe being the bad guy and saying, well, this don't work because of this. But in the end, I think it helps. I work with a lot of the people that aren't good at looking at the details, so we kind of balance each other out a little bit there.
Yeah, that's great to see, Eli, because that's going to be consistent in your life, right? That's not just that you're kind of like that now. I would say that's who you're going to be your whole life, and it's an amazing, amazing asset and an amazing gift. The process of maturity in it is going to be, though, is to know that God has created you like that. You're not a negative. You're not a wet blanket. You're not somebody who's, just stuck on the details. Like you're a gift to more apostolic type evangelistic leaders. Your 5 of the fivefold is an evangelist connector, right? That's going to be, your lowest in this. And so, the cool thing to see there, I wonder, it'd be interesting to see if your brother went through this, Eli, what his results are. Because let's say he's a number 1 evangelist connector and you're a number 1 teacher guardian. You two could partner up and do amazing things as long as you can stay in your lane, right? He's going to be able to gather people. He's got that woo. He's going to get people amped up. But after a couple of weeks of being amped up, they're going to go, where are we going? What are we doing? Like, how do we get things done? And that's where you come in. And I want to encourage you about this too, is to remember that Jesus is the ultimate example of every one of these roles. And so don't get caught up thinking, well, like you said, like, well, those people that have those kind of gifts are great. And I'm just this way. But no, dig into the life of Jesus and see the ways that he was an amazing, amazing teacher, guardian, right? I mean, he's rabbi, he was a teacher. So that's beautiful. looking at the rest of it. So you're a teacher, pastor is your top two. Spiritual pathways is next. And your number one spiritual pathway is contemplative. That means that you connect well with God, right? More mentally, than emotionally. And you connect well by actually, it's just right there, to being a contemplative, mental thinking through studying and growing through the use of your mind. What I love about that connection, Eli, is that if God has created you to be a teacher guardian, where you're going to be able to teach and guide and direct people in processes, is it makes sense that the number one way that you're going to draw close to him is actually by using your mind and thinking in a contemplative way through how things, function, how they grow, how they develop. And it can be in anything. I mean, from a discipleship side of things, from a growing and connection with God kind of side of things. So you're totally equipped to be able to grow with God in a way that drives you into greater impact in your ministry. Is that something that you see in your life right now?
Yeah, I definitely, the impact I've had definitely comes out of my own personal intimacy with Christ. And I think in my passion I wrote, I have a desire to bring people into an ever deepening relationship with Jesus Christ. So God, I feel like God's gifted me with discipleship, not as much evangelism, but leading students closer. My desire for scripture, last summer, I started a thing called Breaking the Checklist with a bunch of high school students who felt like reading scripture was a checklist thing that they had to do every day. So I created this on Google Docs, just this thing where they can go through together and just read scripture and comment, and it doesn't have to be on a certain time schedule or anything. Just to hopefully develop a passion in students to read the Word of God, because that is a hard thing that they all struggle with. Something like that, discipleship is huge to me.
I love it, dude. And you're going to be killer at it. You know what I mean? God's created you for that. I mean, I love that idea, is that's, taking the truth and allowing it to be understandable and applicable to people's lives is what God has uniquely created you to do. And when that truth is specifically the Word of God, obviously that's dynamic, no doubt about that. But you're going to have the ability to do that with any group, any knowledge. So whether it's cooking, whether it's cleaning, whether it's building something, whether it's computer stuff, God has created your brain to work in that way. And when you give them the good stuff of that, it's going to be an absolute gift to the people that you serve. Your personality, you're an INTJ. So you are an introverted, intuitive, thinking judger. Those four tie right in with your spiritual pathways and your ability to be a teacher. To be able to get alone by yourself, to be refueled. That right, doesn't mean that you're bad with people. Introverts aren't bad with people. They just recharge their batteries the way they like to arrange their world, right? They'd rather be alone. And so that ties in so great with that contemplative spiritual pathway in your teacher guardian role. That's beautiful. And then strengths, you're an achiever is your number one strength. Connectedness, learner, relator, arranger. So looking at that, Eli, what I like is it's almost like your strengths, and the top five, there's 34, right, of the strengths, 34 of the strengths. And what's interesting is that you talked about, you took it before, and achiever was always number one, right? Is in the strengths, one thing that I want you to know is that your number 34 is never going to make your top five ever, right? But you're probably your top, 7 or 8. There could be some there that would move because of life phase and education and need. But that top, probably 6 or 7 are all going to be right there your whole life. And so that's cool to see that achiever is number one. What I think is interesting about these 5, Eli, is that it's almost like every other one is more of a relational connection, and then the other one is more of an achieving, knowledge base strength, which I think is really, really cool and unique and great in a ministry context for you, because you're an achiever, but number 2 there is to drive towards connectedness and deeper relationship, right? Which is the discipleship stuff you're talking about. And so if life is relationships and everything else is just the details, you're not just achieving to achieve, you're achieving to stay connected. The number 3 for you is learner, which obviously ties right back into your contemplative spiritual pathway. You're being an IT as far as your Jung's typology, an introverted thinker. And then obviously that drives back into being a strength that's going to allow you to actually have something to teach and guide people in. Then your next one, right? Relator, boom. Now we're back to a relational context, which is amazing. And then that arranger theme, bro, as far as your leadership and what you could bring to an organization, whether it's inside or outside the church, what you just described about the Bible study thing that you put together, right? I mean, you think about the 5 strengths that made that successful with the Bible study you did for those students. It literally is those 5 strengths at work in your life. Can you think of an early story of your life in your childhood where you saw those strengths at work?
Maybe not early. I mean, I've always been high achieving in school. But like, I'm not that kid that will push away friends to do homework, or to finish something. I was always at campus life, always at basketball games, always at everything that I could be, connecting with my friends, putting Bible studies together on Friday nights, stuff like that. Maybe the only thing I can think about is planning how to go to Passion with all my friends.
Tell me that story.
So I'm one of the only maybe me and one other person. We went with 10 people this past year to Passion 2020, and me and one other person,
in Atlanta.
Yeah, in the football stadium.
Yeah.
And I am completely detail oriented, and then one other person is a little bit, maybe not as much. And then all 8 other people just go with the flow. But I'm like trying to get like, all right, this is where we can stay. These are our options. Like, this is how much we'll pay. This is how much we might drive. And the other guy was definitely helping me with that, because he made like a whole graph of everything.
Awesome.
And like, I guess without us, they would have like tried to figure out what Airbnb to get 2 days before it. And everything was packed full there, super expensive. So I had to figure out those details, like 3-day parking, like each day get a parking pass for my car, make sure each car has that, just like really small details. And then figuring out how much money each person owes to this person because they paid for it. But then also being able to go and connect with my friends, connect with the speakers and the worship bands there, and connect with God. So yeah, I guess that's the only thing I can think about, is that all coming together. Not much in my childhood that I can remember.
Well, don't miss what you just said there, Eli. That is beautiful, man, because you being who God's created you to be allowed other people to have a life transforming experience with God. Mm-hmm. Like, it's bigger than just, we went to Passion, right? I guarantee you, the people you took, they're going to talk about what they learned in that experience with God, probably for the rest of their life. And I think what I want you to see is, as God gives you ministry opportunities and in your leadership, is you might end up being one of the guys on stage at Passion 2030, right? I mean, God may bless you with the ability to communicate in that way, and you may teach thousands. You might not, but your leadership in the way that you're driven to actually get things done, the way that you connect with people, that you're great at relating what's happening, you're arranging those things, you're a guide of processes, you're guarding systems, structures, relationship. Like, you will impact thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and be someone who builds a bridge and makes a way for thousands and thousands of people to connect with the truth of God that will change their life. And I just want to encourage you that if you never have the big stage wow type moment, never underestimate the role that you play in connecting people to God, because that's just the Passion story is just a small snapshot of the opportunities that you're going to bring for other people. And I just want to encourage you in that, Eli.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm guessing to be a scholarshiped college athlete, you probably had to, I'm saying the achiever part of you probably was active in your childhood, right? I'm guessing they don't just hand out
Yeah.
scholarships, right?
Yeah. I actually had to, so I was a varsity basketball player too. In junior year, I quit basketball to pursue a tennis scholarship. So instead I would play year-round tennis for 2 hours a day after school, instead of going to basketball. But then I got the scholarship junior year, and then I was able to go back and play basketball because I loved the people and loved the sport. Um, so yeah, I will do what I can to
Yeah.
achieve it.
Yeah. It's beautiful. What, when you wake up every day, Eli, do you feel like you've got to accomplish something?
Yeah, if I sit in my room, I start getting like sick to my stomach. Like whether that be getting an assignment done before this time, so I can have this time later. Um, Typically, like even when like today, I didn't have to wake up at any time, but I was like, all right, I'm setting my alarm for 9. I'm getting this assignment done before I talk to Daron, so then I can have time after to go hammock or something and be in the Word and be outside. So
That's what
like
you said. You said outside because your third spiritual pathway is a naturalist, and it's pretty close to the top. So I know you mentioned a couple of times in our conversation about wanting to go out and hammock and just be outside. And so it sounds like that's ringing true that God is definitely, you connect with him outside.
Yeah, I'm so excited to hike and camp. I am doing a residency in Colorado
All right.
next summer with Generations Church. And I'm really excited to be there and be in a new culture and learn new things, but also like get out away from Indiana and like get in the mountains.
Yeah.
That's how my fiance and I are both like that. We love to just be outside in the sun and enjoy what God's created. Yeah.
Does that feel insignificant and kind of trite to you, or does that feel significant that you're drawn to that kind of environment?
Oh, I think it's pretty significant. It's it's not super hard for me when it's just gray clouds, but I would rather it be bright and going places. Quarantine. I'm an introvert, so sometimes it's okay, but I would rather be going places.
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to encourage you, Eli, is I had a buddy who is a dynamic worship leader, and he lived out in Colorado for a while, and then he moved back to Indiana. He grew up in Indiana, and he got to a place where I've not taken him through spiritual DNA. I wish I could, but I would bet probably $1 million that one of his spiritual pathways, if not his number one, is a naturalist.
Mm-hmm.
And he went out to Colorado and ended up taking a job out there and has just absolutely flourished in his worship leading and the ministry he's leading. And so much of it for him has been is he had to be in the mountains, right? He had to be in a place where he could get out and be in nature. And so I'd lean into that. You know what I mean? Don't take that lightly. The same way you wouldn't looking at being a teacher or looking at the idea of the understanding of being an introvert. Is lean into that. And I know that obviously family connections and networks are important in that. I'm not saying you got to move away from your family, but don't take that lightly. That being in an environment where you could be engaged in nature often would be something that would recharge and strengthen you in your connection with God. And those things are important because if you're going to be involved in a ministry context, you're going to be continually pouring out into others, right? And so you've got to make sure you have that process of deepening and pouring back into yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I never thought about that because one of the things that some churches will do is like share where they are and like how cool that is. And a lot of times people will look down on that they're sharing that, and they're not sharing about their church. But I think for me, it was really cool to hear where they are and like seeing what I could experience in God's creation while still being at a really cool church. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that you're already moving in that direction. I mean, for 21-year-old man, it like sounds like you got it going on. I mean, you got a fiance, you're going to Colorado, you're already done, you're going for your master's. When you said that identity has always been something that you've struggled with, or at least has been something you've battled with, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think I've shared a lot of it. My brother and I have always competed in tennis. He's on my team at IWU now. He's also a ministry student. Christian ministry. So like a lot of that, it's not like his fault or anything like that. It's just he's different than me, and sometimes I want to have those characteristics.
Who's older?
I'm older. He's
Okay.
a freshman.
Okay.
So even that plays into it a little bit. So yeah, I've asked God to give me a heart that praises and has joy when other people succeed in ways that I can't. And I think he's beginning to do that, which is really cool. I think identity might be something I always struggle with, but he's going to continue to give me confidence in the way he's created me uniquely. This is going to help a lot. And I know that he'll continue to instill that confidence every day as I continue to seek him.
Absolutely, Eli. I love what you said there is, and write that down in a journal, is you will continue to struggle with identity your whole life. When we look at the understanding of, we talk about this in spiritual DNA, when we talked about that, the covenant triangle, right? That this relationship we're in with God, it's a covenant relationship. And the idea that in the covenant relationship, it's, father, identity, and obedience. And that is something that changed my life as I understood it, because so often, I remember Mike Breen taught me this and changed my life, because he talks about that. And it's in one of the spiritual DNA videos, that we always do it backwards. We get connected to God, our Father, somehow. And most of us focus directly on obedience, which is performance driven. How am I doing? Am I doing enough? Am I sinning too much? Am I sinning too little? Am I reading the Bible enough? It's all performance driven. And we tell ourselves who we are. And that is the absolute opposite way of the kingdom, right? Is that God connects us through grace, through Jesus, and he tells us who we are. And obedience flows out of identity. And here's the thing that I want to encourage you to take a look at, Eli, is that when the devil comes and our enemy, right, the word says he's an accuser, is the two things he wants to attack most is our identity or God's. Right? Because if he can get us to distrust God's identity, which is his character, right? What is true about him, it throws everything off. And then for us, if we can begin to question and distrust or not have peace in who God's created us to be in our identity, it's an absolute tailspin. So I love what you said there, and I want to encourage you is this will be a journey for the rest of your life. And I'd encourage you with your spiritual DNA results. I've talked to people who over, a decade, as they keep coming back to their results, they'll get into a work situation, or they'll get into a marriage situation, a relational situation where pain or struggle or failure comes in, or maybe even great success that begins to drive them towards like, hey, you can take this job and make this amount of money and have this kind of prestige, but it drives them away from who God's created them to be. It drives them outside of that place of identity. And before you know it, they're lacking passion, they're lacking peace, they're lacking purpose. I'm so glad that this has been helpful to you at 21, but I want to encourage you is to lean into what you've discovered here when you're 21, when you're 31, when you're 41, because this is who God's created you to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I remember I didn't talk to him. I listened to Louis Giglio 2 years ago at Passion, and he's talked about how the main way that we see a lot of people see God is as a father, and like so the main way that the devil is attacking this world is through the father relationship. So like the broken families and stuff like that. So that hit it. That was cool.
Well, what other questions do you have, Eli? I'd love to, answer any of them that you have if I can. We've had a great conversation so far. I appreciate your input and your openness and letting us learn through the process. I know there's going to be people that are similar in their DNA that are going to be very inspired and helped by this. But any other questions you came with that you wanted to go through?
Not entirely. So this might sound a little crazy since I guess I'm 21 years old, but I feel like God's put a church name on my mind and even a church framework or church model almost on my mind. And I was always wondering if I was cut out to plant a church or something like that down the road, or even just a ministry. I don't know, if my how I've created to be is set up well for that. I feel like it is. And even if it doesn't, I still feel like God's calling me to it in some way, sometime.
Yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Great question, Eli. That's exciting stuff. And I would say a lot of times you're going to see people who are successful in church planting, that they may be more that apostle pioneer or evangelist connector kind of role. Now, the interesting thing is it's not that they can and you can't. It comes into what other team members that you would need to really make it strong. And I had an opportunity to plant a church for 8 years. I loved it, and maybe I'll do it again sometime. But right now, I make sure with our ministry that we have all the 5 voices: apostle, prophet, evangelist, shepherd, and teacher on the team to lead us forward. And so it'd be important for you to have a team where that's represented. What I think is intriguing about your DNA is the fact that you are a teacher in that achiever part of your strengths. Your strengths make up those 5 strengths that you have. I think they could uniquely equip you to lead a church plant well. I think what you would need to do is to find a little bit within maybe your core team, find that apostolic, evangelistic, big personality, woo kind of person, and team up together, because you might struggle with just gathering at the beginning, but the difference would be some evangelists, connectors, are great at gathering people because they bring people on, they woo them, but they don't do a great job in taking them somewhere, right? So there can be a sense where depth can be an issue. Depth, I don't think, would be an issue in what you're doing. And because what I love that you said is, I've got a name and I think I've got a ministry structure, right? You're thinking already through arranging a system and structure by which to get people into deeper relationship with Jesus. Like, you didn't just say, dude, I'm thinking about this awesome service. We're going to have all the smoke and lights and lasers, right? And we're going to give away free puppies and it's going to be amazing, right? You're already thinking depth. But I would say, as you go on to it, is you want to find a team, and it would be important to make sure there's some people on the team that might come up with free puppy giveaway ideas, but you can arrange it and guide it and take it to a place of depth.
Yeah. I'm pretty close to someone like that who is also a worship leader. So we've had conversations. I'll say that. And then even I could maybe talk to my brother, which would be cool. We've joked around about it too. I feel like the jokes that I make, especially I made jokes about maybe being a pastor someday, they end up coming true sometimes.
Be careful with those jokes, Eli.
Right?
Well, dude, I love it, dude. I love your passion for the church. I love where you're going. I think you're going to be, what I want to let you know is that God has equipped you for everything that he's called you to accomplish. In the first passage that we, build. Eli, there?
Yep. I'm still here. Do you hear me?
I hear you, but I can't find you. Somebody just called in to my,
Interesting.
somebody called and you disappeared. There you are. All right. We'll have to have somebody edit that out. Is one of the main passages from spiritual DNA there is that Second Peter passage, right? That says that Jesus has the power of God and through which he's given us everything we need to live and to serve God. And so I just want to encourage you, man. I love that you've already made the steps you had, the vision that you have, and just have the confidence that God has uniquely created you. You've got some phenomenal gifts and abilities, and it's already in you. You know, the seeds of great kingdom impact and leadership, they're already in you. The process now, and this is the challenge, right, for all of us, the process now is to grow in maturity in that process. And so, and you're uniquely gifted to do that too, because, you know, of your strengths. I mean, that achieve it, that learner, you know what I mean, moving in towards that. So I'm excited to see what God does in and through you, Eli. It's really, really cool to meet you and to see the journey you're on. Man, it's exciting. I have a question for you. What about your fiance? Have you taken her and talked to her about spiritual DNA or her results at all?
Yeah, she is. I would have to give like specific tests, but she's kind of opposite.
Okay.
Yeah, gets energized by being with people. Very kind, like it's one of those people that you think is faking it, how nice she is. She's just so kind to everyone and loving, and just draws people in with that.
Okay.
I would say she is introvert. She is introverted, but she's more loves to be with people, almost like so I'm okay with sitting in my room doing homework, but then being outside, but she like had to go get a job or like had to be with people. So, in a way we're the same, but also in different ways.
Yeah.
And she's beautifully gifted in worship. And, so we'll see.
Well, I would encourage you. Something you could do is have her take spiritual DNA and then sit down and go through your results, because one of the greatest gifts you can give your guys' marriage early on in life is later on in that passage in Ephesians chapter 4, where it talks about that we speak the truth in love to each other. And a lot of people, I've heard people teach that, and they teach it in the context of like rebuking people, right? I'm going to speak the truth to you, but I'm going to do it nicely, right? And contextually, I don't think that's what Paul's saying. I think what he's saying is so key about the truth of who God's created us to be able to speak that and call that out and call each other up into becoming who God's created them to be. And one of the greatest gifts you can give each other in marriage is just to continue to remind each other of the gifts and abilities that God has given each other, and learn to rely on each other's gifts because you're going to see the world completely different probably than she is. She's different and vice versa. And if you can early on in your marriage not compete, but learn how to complement each other, it'd be a pretty good first decade for you.
Yeah, I guess I forgot to say she's prophetic. So
okay,
that would probably be probably her top one in the fivefold.
Yeah, you guys be a dynamic duo, man.
Yeah, I like to think so.
Well, Eli, man, I've loved the time together. I appreciate you reaching out and allowing us to record this to help other folks. Man, it's just good stuff. If you don't have any more questions, we'll wrap it up. But I'm excited to see where God takes you and where things go as you move into your masters and towards your marriage, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is really helpful. I'm excited to move forward with it.
Rock and roll. Well, if you have any more questions, thoughts, don't hesitate to email me, reach out, whether it's email or social media, Twitter, whatever. I'd love to be here to help you to continue to walk the journey, man.
All right. I will do. Thanks.
All right. Take it easy, Eli.